What's the most useless profession that still brings an irk? Mine. It's strategist. I explain to executives that many of their current problems are the result of not listening to my previous advice. Then I give them fresh new advice that they will ignore. Rinse and repeat. ICOP is looking for job ideas. People to do resale of event tickets. Slimy bastards. Self-help gurus. Televangelist. Higher education administrators are a self-licking ice cream cone. Reddit so. Scrum masters get 6 figures to ask people their status. College administration. Just occurred to me because I heard about a guy whose entire job is reselling Magic the Gathering cards, and apparently he makes a lot. Fly to Australia and become a traffic guard on a building site. Influencer. Boeing 737 MAX quality inspector. Who is a person that everyone thought was crazy, but they ended up being right. Alfred Wegener, who first proposed continental drift, what would ultimately become plate tectonics. Geologists of the day considered him an outsider and rejected his theory. Some of the elderly patients with dementia in a home in my city kept complaining they weren't given food. Everyone thought they must have forgotten that they'd already eaten, as people with dementia sometimes do. Nope. Turns out some pieces of shit nursing staff didn't always give everyone their meals, amongst other abuse. Sister Kenny and her physical therapy for polio victims. The treatment at the time was to lock up the affected limbs in braces or casts, leaving the patient crippled for life. Her idea of using hot compresses and gently moving the limbs took a very long time to be accepted by the medical establishment, as she was a woman and just a nurse. What's gotten so expensive that you no longer purchase it? Food from food trucksies not spending $15 for a grilled cheese that I have to wait in the rain for. McDonald's. What happened to the dollar menu? There ain't nothing on there that costs $1. Mobile apps. I'm absolutely infuriatingly tired of subscription services. The worst is that they let you download the app so they can claim it as a download, only to get stonewalled by a subscription page. Let's go back to a one-time fee, please. At this rate, shelter and food. Subway, even the 6-inch subs are over $7 before chips and soda. I never buy chips unless there's some kind of BOGO. It's pretty damn expensive just to exist right now. In English, we use the phrase righty-tighty, lefty-loosey as a helpful reminder. What other languages have comparable common sayings? Worked with a guy who spent 5 minutes trying to screw a stud into a part, when told it was a left-hand thread. I wish I was making this up. Rechts dret die, or so Jets saying, for the clock turns right. That's how it gets tight. To remember the Alps, we use the sentence "Ma con gran pena la ricagiu" in Italian, meaning he carries them down with great suffering. Maritime così grey penin lepentin retich carnich gili. Clockwise, lockwise. In Swedish we have a phrase to remember the countries in Middle America from top to Gustav per Elsa, Han nicker, koster pengar. And Gustav asks Elsa, she nods, it costs money. Countries: Guatemala, Belize, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama. Which occupations are filled with people who have the worst personality? I used to work in events, and we hired our spaces to people from many industries. By far the worst clients were from fashion. Wanted everything immediately with massive discounts, and they were extremely demanding. A very don't you know who I am kind of attitude. I understand that to get into that industry, you essentially have to work for free for several years, so only trust fund kids make it. I used to work for a social service agency, and I was shocked by how nasty my coworkers were. The work culture was plain mean. Investment banking, in particular the successful types, can be difficult. Today I learned Administrators in public schools. Ask some teachers you know. Edit Waugh did not expect so many to agree with me. Construction can get pretty bad. Bosses never took a management class. Everybody's miserable. Grown men fighting like school girls. What stopped you from killing yourself? I didn't want to inconvenience people with my death. I was talking to a crow. I told it to call once for yes or twice for no. Asked it if it understood. They said yes. Asked if I should jump no. The thought of my parents getting a phone call saying that their only kid took his own life, the thought of that just gives me chills. I have a mentally ill kid. It's the ripple effect that keeps me here. Usually it is because I know my mom couldn't survive it, and I don't want to put my family through something like that twice. Once, though, that wasn't enough. My sister-in-law sent me a funny picture of their kid. That's when I realized they would have to explain to a 7-year-old what happened. To this day, 5 years later, she has no idea she saved my life. My card declined at checkout when buying supplies. My dog walked and saw me crying and licked my face. What's the most useless profession that still brings a lot of money? Televangelist. Car salesman. I should be able to order a car online without dealing with you. Deliver it to the dealership, I don't care. But I shouldn't have to deal with all your bullshit. Apparently being friends with politicians is a job always creating a new job. No one needs to get influence or some other form of power. Influencers. Coming from a stripper stripping. There's really nothing more useless than being a celebrity. Reddit so. Male model Oniv. Chiropractor. Investment banker. Lobbyist. Insurance salesman. Construction workers who hold the stop-go signs. In Australia they earn good money benefits because of unions, but also keep the job in the digital age because of unions. Real estate agent and car salesman. What is actually healthy but people think is not? Frozen fruits and vegetables. The modern flash freeze technique preserves almost all of the nutrients, and they are always picked when they are in season, so they are as nutritious as their fresh in-season counterparts, and more nutritious if it is not the season. Sport during pregnancy. Actually, a lot of things are healthy during pregnancy. There's just too much misinformation. If your doctor explicitly says no sport, then yes, do that. But if doctor says ok, then go ahead. Doing literally nothing to decompress. Sometimes one just needs to breathe and look out a window. Crying. Spending time alone. Eating fats like avocados is actually healthy despite what some think. Taking a break. I'm looking for the answer pizza. Can anyone please tell me it's healthy? Edit so many people making their own pizzas, and they all sound amazingly healthy. Thanks for the Ray all an inspiration. It's actually such a crazy coincidence the moon and the sun are the same size in the sky. I wish I could find the original comment, but a Redditor remarked that this and eclipses as a result of this was sufficiently rare distinctive that, if we ever joined a sort of intergalactic United Nations, we could use it as a flag design or a selling point for Earth tourism. And that there's only a single moon. That in itself is highly unusual. 400 times further away, 400 times bigger. It really is interesting. However, we just happen to be alive during the period that holds true. The moon used to be a lot closer to Earth. Eventually, this observation will no longer be true, the way it wasn't true in the distant past. Obviously, it's because the moon was artificially constructed by an ancient race of lizard people who use the interior of the moon as a base, with a soul-harvesting antenna on the surface of the dark side. I mean, what else could explain it? Nothing, I say, nothing. What makes you feel uneasy about a high body count? Higher risk of STDs. Lack of trust and commitment. To me it either means they can't hold a relationship and go from one person to the next, or they like to sleep around and hook up a lot but am more uneasy putting it all on red. It follows. A high body count triggers unease because it reflects a significant loss of life confronting us with the fragility of existence, ethical dilemmas, and the harsh realities of violence. That makes them dangerous and probably serial killers. If they like Chianti with liver and fava beans. For me it's insecurity of not being able to please that person. What is your deepest, darkest secret? My grandfather stole a red pepper shaker from an Italian restaurant. The year after he passed, we went to the same restaurant. In honor of him, I stole a Parmesan shaker for a matching pair. R.I.P. Grandpa. I once ate a party platter of delicious tropical fruit during a tour in Honduras and blamed it on monkeys. I couldn't pick up the pieces after my divorce. Would go weeks without showering or brushing my teeth. I found my baby blanket from my youth in a trunk and wrapped it around myself that night. Best sleep I had had in years. I keep it in my bed since then. I am a 42-year-old man. I farted so bad and smelly once they had to evacuate my Spanish class to search for a gas leak. It's concerning how quickly we decided to stop naming world wars and just use a number system. The war to end all wars eventually being referred to as World War I historically is both sad and hilarious. If you consider that wars are typically named after their participants, it makes complete sense. The first one was the Great War, and then what else could you do when it happened again? World War I. Judging by the uniform, yes, but what do you mean? Oh, sorry. Spoilers. I agreed it should have gone like this. The Great War. The Great War 360. The Great War I. The Great War Series X. Strangely enough, the idea of a Second World War and even the term World War II were around 20 years before that actual people warned of a World War II like people today warn of a World War III. The war to end wars made no sense when we got its sequel.